AM 1370 WLTH and on the FM dial 92.7 W224EA, Gary, Indiana.
Gary, Indiana, Nightfall Jazz, Blues, and Soul with a little karaoke. Hosted by yours truly, Dr. J, the Prime Minister of the Blues. Thursday.
You were ready to give up.
Ours was the first revolution in the history of mankind that truly reversed the course of government, and with three little words: we the people. We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car, and we decide where it should go and by what route and how fast.
WLTH AM 1370. We're sharing this in Facebook and other media. And you guys are welcome to call in. Like I said again, my number is 219-885-1371. And we're going to get the show on the road. 5, 4, 3, 2. Good evening, region in Northwest Indiana. My name is John Allen, host of We the People, the podcast, broadcasting from AM 1370 WLTH radio. And I want to go through the disclaimer and let you guys know the views expressed by the host and the callers of this show are not necessarily the views of the WLTH management, owners, advertisers, and or sponsors. Today is September 2022. We got a tongue twister going. Today is September 22, 2022. And I'm glad to be with you this evening. And I look forward to sitting in with you guys and enjoying a good hour of talk radio and the podcast. And those of you who don't know or not familiar with We the People, is this your first time seeing it? We the People basically is a program that has some political, economic, and social underpinnings to it. We bring up all kinds of subjects, but the theme of the show, or what we want to do, we want to educate, motivate, and make our audience acquainted and be a source of information. By doing so, we plan to have reoccurring guests such as Attorney Justin Camper. We plan to have reoccurring segments such as one I aired already. I didn't air over the air here, but I did air it on the We the People page, such as this gentleman we met named Suzuki Gump. That's his nickname. He's a gentleman that comes from Japan, and he's making a trek across the United States. And he stopped in Northwest Indiana, and I got to interview him. And I uploaded that interview. It's a brief interview. And I uploaded that interview in front of Michael Jackson's house. And he's a fan, so that's what made him stop here in Gary in his trek from New York to California. I don't know how far along he is, but by the next show, I think I may call him up and see if he can call in and let us know how far he's gotten so far. If I'm not mistaken, it took him about a month to get out of New York to the Midwest. And I don't know how long exactly it took him to get to Gary. Of course, he's not running, or he's pulling a buggy, actually. So of course he's not doing that 24/7. He stops and rests and things like that. But it'd be interesting to catch up. But the reason why I bring him up, he was the first segment of our We the People on the Street, where we're going to be knocking on doors and asking people what they're doing or taking their comments, or we may stop people. And I do plan to do things such as go to different areas or unique areas and stop someone on the street and talk to them a little bit as well. And I hope you guys enjoy that. Another segment we're going to have on We the People is called the Law Library, where we're going to take a ordinance, law, or rule, and we're going to read it live over there. We may have an attorney explain it or someone else that it's affecting at that time, or maybe a legislator explain it, talk about it. We're going to open up the lines and have some questions, but we're going to do one further. We're going to actually do a call to action to address that law, rule, or ordinance. That way you guys can get involved hands-on. A lot of times, often, should I say, we bring up things that we don't like or we perceive that we don't like, and we never explain what we can do about it other than the discussion that we don't like it. And I was telling a friend today, we was having a business discussion, and I said that I had the honor of being in a circle where it was some people, and they were business people, but they would bring up an opportunity or an issue or problem. In the first meeting, it'll be talked about. The second meeting, people will be bringing back the information or research that they did from the first talk to the second. And then the next meeting, it'll be a solicitation for either money, volunteers, or whatever resources we need to execute what we came up with. And the fourth meeting may be actually the results, where we're at right now, the results of that endeavor. And I really, really hope the Creator willing and ourselves that we come accustomed to moving that way. And I think that'll be a good way for we the people to move. And when I say we the people, I mean all the people. The people in the we inside the we, as my friend Eric would say, as well as the people beyond the we inside the we and beyond. So with that being said, I'm gonna talk a little bit about our upcoming guests that we're gonna have in the next couple episodes. Next week, we're gonna have national author and book writer Susan Peters on the show. And Susan's going to come in, she's going to talk about her latest novel, and she's going to talk about some of her other novels. But she has a series of fiction novels based on an African-American woman detective that's pretty good. And one of the books that I read, I think will make a really good movie. She also has a book, and I may be wrecking the title, called Lessons from the Coal Pot, COALPOT, Coal Pot. And where she talks about her experience of living in West Africa as an African American. So we had someone before that was a resident of Ghana right now on the show, and it'd be interesting to talk to this American that's here back in Chicagoland, and they lived in Africa for some time and even birthed some of their children there, and they're a national author, a best-selling author too. So that'll be real interesting for the show, and I look forward to that. We're also going to have Nelson Morales. Nelson Morales is a loan consultant, and he does loans for investors. And he does, I would believe he does residential loans for families too. But we're going to have him come in after Susan and talk a little bit about what he does. And my goal for having these loan people come in, these financial people to come in, is so we can take some action and get our ducks in a row. So I would love to have a credit counselor come in too. So if you guys know any good credit counselors or credit repair people, I'd like for them to come in and have a segment on We the People on our economics as well. And then, of course, we're going to have in the third episode after the first two I just described. Later, we're going to have in October, the first week of October, we're going to have Jerry Zagone. Jerry Zagone is a regional mortgage broker, and he has a lot of experience with loans. And I recall at one time he was doing loans for people with credit scores in the 560s and 570s. Yeah, so he was under 600, and he was getting those loans done, making it happen. And he's very well educated about first-time buyer loans. He's very well educated about HUD loans. So we want to get Mr. Jerry Zagone to come in and be our guest in one of the upcoming shows. In this particular show, we're going to talk a little bit about our current status in our economy. As I promised you guys when the show first premiered, that we were going to talk about, or we're going to set the stage to have some of our economic indicators, or what I call economic indicators, or local economic indicators. And those of you who don't know, the treasurer's sale, or what we call generic terms, the tax sale is coming up. And this particular tax sale is the treasurer's sale. there's two tax sales. There's a treasurer's sale and there's a commissioner's sale. And on this particular sale, I had thought to myself that what we should do every quarter when they have a sale, we should report to the public the number of properties on the Lake County tax sale. Maybe even St. Joseph or other counties, but right now the region is consistent of Lake County, or maybe even Porter County. But the reason why I picked that as an economic indicator, for a property to qualify to be on the tax sale, it has to be behind in the property taxes. And it can be behind for several reasons. Financial hardship of the owner, maybe economic strain of the owner. And in addition to finding what I mean by economic strain, I'll explain that because I make a distinction between a owner-occupied property and an investor, because you have investment properties that wind up on the sale too. So I call that an economic strain. But if it's a homeowner, I call that a hardship, because they may lose where they're sleeping. So that's a hardship. But for investors, the economic strain, it's bad, but it's not as bad. At least they're not losing where they're sleeping. And then we have properties that are underutilized or not being utilized at all or abandoned, and they wind up on the sale too. So the number of properties on the tax sale, keeping up with that, even if you're not involved in the tax sale, is a good economic indicator of where our county is. So right now on this particular list, I count 12,205 properties. And the list probably been updated from a week ago where it's some that went off. But 12,200 properties, that's a lot of parcels. Let's just argue for the sake of argument. Let's say if 1/3 of them was vacant lots, all right? That still leave us with 9,000 parcels, whether they're commercial or 9,000 potential structures that we're not collecting taxes on. And the reason why this is such an important economic indicator to myself is two. One, the health of the population, the economic health of the population is directly reflected in how many properties are in that tax sale and how many foreclosures there are and how many homes is for sale. And sometimes the scarcity of housing, if there's not enough stuff for sale and it's driving the market up artificially, it's an indicator of how healthy that community is too. That means people want to be there. So it's good for us, we the people, to keep our pulse as to what's going on in the housing market. And I don't mean what's going on as how many homes are sold is relevant, how many homes are in the market is relevant, but how many properties we have where we're not collecting taxes. Because those tax dollars, those are used to pay for police, firemen, sometimes maintenance. So it's a whole laundry list of things that are taken care of from our property taxes, schools. So with that being said, I also want to remind our audience, our listening audience, that in real life, that a community, a city, a state, it only has three streams of revenue, three primary streams of revenue. That's taxes, you have fines, you have fees. And I'm gonna give an example of each. So in the coffers or the tills, the public till, that's our money, our bag, as they would say now. It's a trendy word everybody putting around now. They say you got a bag. So in our public bag, we collect taxes. So in some cities and municipalities and states, they may have a hotel tax. Believe it or not, some places have a water bottle tax. But we have different taxes, okay? Then we have fines. So if I run a red light or I park illegally, I pay a fine. And a lot of this fine budget, can help sustain our court system and things like that and our court costs. And we have fees. And fees, like today, I went down to the building department to take care of electrical inspection. So you might have a fee for electrical inspection. And those money may go into the till and help pay for our inspectors and things like that. So we can't get around taxes, fines, and fees. And then you have what I call ancillary income. City staffers or people like that, they may call it something else. They may just deem it the tourism, whatever. But you have extra income from tourism, maybe even a fuel tax, but that's under taxes too. And of course, you had a sin taxes, the taxes from gambling, smoking, alcohol, and most recently, marijuana in some places. Right now in the region, we don't have to worry about marijuana taxes. But in Illinois, that's a thing now. But anyway, make a long story short, of course, we got gambling taxes. So I would just put that under the category of tourism. So to have a good economy and a healthy community, let's just start with some of the ABCs or the basics for our listening audience. You would want to do things that increase the population with regard to taxes. And this is how an increased population affects the tax base. If you have a city with 60,000 people and you have a city with 160,000 people, and the ratio of taxpayers is the same in both numbers, the other city with more people are going to have more taxpayers. And then if they're aging the same, at the same ratio, the city with the larger number is going to have more people come of age to pay taxes and help carry the burden of the city. And let's say they're both cities are the same 50 square miles in size, right? So you got only 60,000 people need to take care of this 50 square miles, where you got 160,000 people contributing to take care of this 60 square miles. So this is why a population increase and population growth in our region would be a good thing. In our situation would be a very good thing. Then you also have fines. And let's say the rate we write fines up are low because we have a lot of people not running red lights and obeying laws. So we actually use less money to enforce those things. So it wouldn't matter that we're not collecting as much fines if we don't have to fund the things that create the fines. So it's also good for that massive population to have good conduct and obey the laws and rules and policies. So crime is a significant, or breaking rules in general, significantly affect how we use our till. So that's one way the population and fines will affect it. But let's say the fines are for harmless things like not cutting the grass or whatever. But if you have a city that's underpopulated, there's nobody to collect these fines from. And then next we're going to talk about fees. So let's say, for example, we have fees because we have some type of public exercise facility or park and pools. And let's say we have public marina, say we had a marina. And some of those monies from our museum, our zoos, our marina, they also went into the city till or the municipality or the state or the county till, right? So you want to have high population or good healthy population with good economic health, so you can have adequate fees coming into to take care of your land mass or your community or city, right? So this is like the ABCs of the financial situation with the cities, right? We also have sales tax, income tax, property taxes, right? And of course, all these go under the umbrellas of taxes. So let's talk a little bit about sales tax, property tax, and income tax. Let me start first with sales tax. If you have a vacuum where there's not enough businesses, of course, there's not enough sales tax. So you may have, and this is the danger in this, the danger is twofold. First, let me just take it on the simplest level. Say if you don't have enough restaurants, tire shops, grocery stores, clothing stores, shoe stores, places to get your haircut where you had that, or goods and services, insurance companies, manufacturing, say a cabinet manufacturing company, doorknob making company. If you don't have enough diversity in business across the line and you have a high concentration of fast food, you have a high concentration of liquor business or liquor related business, liquor stores, you have a high concentration of just the gas stations where you're also doing grocery shopping because you don't have adequate groceries. And I want to talk about that a little bit too, my recent visit to the grocery store. But you don't have adequate grocery places to buy groceries. You're not collecting enough sales tax, right? The other part of that is this. If you only have a few categories of industry in your town, those industries are the only industries that have money to bag either lobbyists or politicians to institute policies you have to live under that you may not like. So if the wealth is only generated by a concentrated few in your community, that's who's going to have the ear of the politicians. That's who's going to have the ear of the leadership. They would actually be able to select leadership by their sponsorship because it costs money to run for office. It costs money to develop candidates. It costs money to solidify a political party and organize a party and for the party to have structure and execute its agenda. That costs money and effort, and it requires a circle of thinking people, among the masses. So with that being said, you want your economy diversified so it can empower your business people where you can have diversity and they don't have to always go along to get along. Okay? So that's important too with regards to sales tax. With regard to income tax, if you have a lot of unemployment, you're not collecting a lot of income tax. And income tax money, or whether it's monies that's used, and I'm not sure exactly how our state takes our income tax and distribute it. I don't know if it's earmarked for only certain expenses. Somebody might want to call in and explain that to us. We may even have a guest come in and explain to us how some of these very taxes, they may not all go in one pot. And then we legislate or create budgets and just dip in the general fund. Some smaller places may be ran like that. I don't know. But we may have someone come in as a guest to explain to us in the general public, explain to we the people, how does that work exactly? If we're not collecting enough in fines, do that affect our court system costs? And if we don't have enough to run the courts, how do we get that money? Do we supplement it from the state? If we're not collecting enough in fees, how do we sustain and cut the grass at the park if we have no park district fees, because the park district may not own anything that is collecting fees on? How does that work? If we're not collecting enough in property tax, how does that really affect us? What shortfalls do we have, and how do we try to make up that money? And I'm not even going to discuss tourism. All right. We have Midtown, a historically African-American area where we had the likes of several people, not just Michael Jackson, several notable Garyites come from Midtown, and Midtown right now is suffering. It's suffering in multiple ways, and one of the ways it's suffering is that it doesn't have tourism. You know, Bronzeville is a similar area. Bronzeville, Chicago is similar to Midtown, right? Bronzeville, due to segregation in Chicago in the early years, all the entertainers stayed and hung out in Bronzeville. You know, when they come to town, they may be allowed to perform in white areas, but they couldn't stay in them when they stayed overnight. In addition to that, Bronzeville have a lot of notable African Americans and non-African Americans, but particularly African Americans that lived and thrived in Bronzeville, some even born there, such as Quincy Jones, right? However, when you go to Bronzeville today, you can go by Muddy Waters' house. You can go to different places and you will see plaques outside of who lived there, or different places where Ida B. Wells was at, and different things happen. And to me, Midtown can have those things more. I think Means Matter should have its own plaque. When you pull into Means Matter, it should be a plaque saying, hey, this is Means Matter, and this is who Mr. Means was, and this is what he meant to the city of Gary, and we should have a plaque for Means Matter. We should have a plaque outside of, two plaques, outside Roosevelt High School, and we list all the notable graduates on one, and then we have another one that is dedicated to all the notable people that died in war, gave their life for this country, in their service to this country, that went to Roosevelt as well. So we should have a memorial, and we should also have, in addition to the memorial, we should have notable mention of people that graduated that school as well. And I didn't attend the Gary Public Schools, but this is a very norm for a community. So I'm not dreaming up nothing spectacular. This is very normal stuff. But back to Bronzeville and tourism. So that's another venue of income I want to talk about as well. I think I'm missing one on the taxes. I touched on income tax, I touched on sales tax and property tax. But I did touch on the property tax a little bit. But I love to hear some questions from you guys about property taxes. So call us up at 219-885-1371 about the property tax. But right now I want to say something about the tourism. So we have one of the most famous and most recognizable faces in the world, Michael Jackson, and of course his family, but particularly Michael, and come out of Midtown. And right now we don't have a memorial up in his yard anymore, and it's laying in the backyard. It was a newspaper article about it, and I kind of been feeling to the left for years about it. And basically, if you create a T-chart, these are the two sides on it. One is our house, or the house belongs to the family, and we as the public can't tell them what to put in their yard, right? Then you got the other side. Well, the monument was donated to the city, and it's city property. And if you don't want to put it up, give it back. And maybe the city can sit it out in Midtown. Relinquish the city property. That's a strong argument. It's not like you guys bought it. You don't want to put it back up, relinquish it. I agree with that. I know you can tell in the tone of my voice I agree with that. But let's play devil's advocate and talk about the other side. Too often, and I experienced this too, in our town, in the region, as a matter of fact, because I experienced in Hammond as well, but particularly in Gary, because we're talking about Midtown, We have people that have been here a long time, and they get cloudy and they forget the rights of other people because of how long they've been here. And they take it upon themselves to argue with someone else that should or shouldn't do with their money. I have people say things like, now Michael left here before he was 10 years old. And they say, well, he hadn't been back to give us nothing. He ain't done nothing for us. And my opinion is this: charitable acts is charitable acts. It wouldn't be charity if it was compulsory. If you were forced to do it, it's not charity. If you're guilted into doing it, it's not charity. If you do something out of guilt, I doubt if it's a blessing waiting on you on the other side of the pearly gates. It's appreciation here, and you're not going to be sin. You're not going to be registered a sin for doing something out of guilt. But I doubt if you got a reward for doing something out of guilt. But if you did it from you did it because you can identify the benefit in it, and actually benefit someone, then that's a different story. But as far as I'm concerned, Michael and the family don't owe us one red cent. I didn't rehearse the moonwalk. I didn't sing a song. I didn't write Can You Feel It? Nothing. And we need to stop that, because that's tribalism. I call it tribalism, where we group up in these different groups, whether it's over issues, beliefs. We do it in our ages. That's how come the old and young can't cooperate here in the region and get anything done. The old have all the experience in the world, and my seniors, they've forgotten more than I ever know. They've lived to see things where they've forgotten more than I ever know, despite, even if I have more education than one of them. That doesn't matter in the sense of the value of what they can bring in experience. They also have a certain degree of emotional intelligence that even if I had it, it won't be as developed as that of a senior person until I become a senior. That's invaluable. However, the youth, they have the understanding of not just modern times, but the technology and the advancement on how to execute in a modern environment. And that need to be leveraged by our seniors. And it need to be cohesive and go together. And it reminds me of why we need tourism so bad, and we need to be on the same page with our tourism. We got a caller coming in. I'm gonna take this call and we'll continue our conversation. Caller, thank you for calling We the People. You're on the air.
Okay, I appreciate everything you just said, because just because you may become a successful person doesn't mean that you own the birth city anything. You don't owe them anything. If you decide to do it, as you said, it's charitable.
Yes, I agree.
But other than that, Michael and Janet was probably, 4 years old?
Possibly, because Michael's old.
Michael was 8 or 9.
Right, I said he was under 10. Yep, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, they owe us nothing now if they decide to come back here and say we appreciate your support from the ground. That's wonderful.
Exactly.
But we have to stop with that mentality that someone owes us something.
I agree 100%.
We have to do it on our own.
Well, thank you for calling in, caller, and thank you for listening to We the People. And I hope that you share our program and our show, and you're more than welcome to even offer some ideas for the show and or guests if you know any, because like I say, the theme of the show is We the People, and I want this to be everyone's show, not just mine. I just happen to be the host. We got another caller, and caller, thank you for calling We the People. You're live on air. What's your name, caller?
Moselle Heyman.
Okay, Mr. Heyman. So thank you for calling We the People. What you like to say?
The thing is that the way that the Jacksons and got famous was Mayor Hatcher's Night to Remember, by him bringing in the Motown, a lot of famous people. And it was when Diana Ross came here and Michael and them performed for Mayor Hatcher that boosted their career. They were so multi-talented. I know them well. Knew their dad worked in the mill. But the thing is that not that they owe Gary anything. I don't want to give my history, but I've been in Gary since 1950, and there's national achievements I've made. I still live here by choice, but Gary doesn't owe me anything because I developed here. it was due to Gary and the people that was in my life. I went to Gary College and grew up on what is now called hilltops or the small farms, and we didn't have paved roads or sewers or any of that stuff. But the thing is, what we did.
I'm sorry, caller. I think I lost you.
No, he's still there. Oh, you go to the next call.
Hey, Kyle, the next caller, please. What's your name? And thank you for calling We the People.
Okay, my name is Denise Hamilton. You know what? This is my comment. I'm not going to comment on the Jacksons, but I'm going to say what I would do. If I were as famous as the Jacksons and money, I would do all that I can. I don't care if I was 2 years old. I would do all, if I started hearing people, these children would come to my concerts, that's just me. I have no comment, like I said with them. I would give to Gary, Indiana, all that I could and all that I had. I would start right here where I started to get things to people. I would deliver. I would show up for the show down and show up. And that's what I would do. I would not, whatever Gary needed, I would be there, Johnny on the spot. With that kind of money.
I got a question for you, caller.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you something. So, somebody with a charitable mentality like yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that you would have the insight to have a valid opinion about what you think would be the most important charitable thing or one of the most important things you would try to cure with money in the city. Forget being in Jackson. If you was able to cure, if it was one thing you thought was a priority to cure here, what would that be?
Well, now I'm going to tell you. A lot of, I'll talk about this particular time, not then, but right. I noticed that there are a lot of young people in Gary, Indiana right now. They don't even know their goodness and they do not know their greatness, okay? Because they are so busy doing wrong things, bad things, killing, shooting, robbing. Some of them don't even know what's so good and so great out here. But anyway, what I would do, I would have a program where, at first I would start with the ones that's locked up in jail, because my personal feeling, I don't think when you locked up in jail and you out there picking up garbage and trash and stuff, work on me.
Caller, let me ask you a question. When you say young people, you mean under 18, or you're talking about the youth period? I know you may be talking about both in the course you're going, but if it was a priority, and I like to separate the people in jail from the youth. Now, we can talk about the people over 18, the young people, but I like to separate them, and I'm going to explain my reason why after you comment. But if you had to pick between the two groups, and one important thing you get, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like to me that you would take your wealth and you would create a moral educational network where young people are getting some base education about themselves and how to conduct themselves to make it possible for them to take in their greatness and thrive. Is that correct?
That's right. And I probably would build a big place called home training so they can see, you know what? And I probably would build another place. I'm going to tell you something else. I know this sounds crazy, but I probably would build another place called the Old South. And then kids will learn how to do canning and all kind of country stuff, things that were done in the South, just all kind of stuff.
So your goal would be
where your people came from, the struggle, it would be a little bit of everything.
So,
and I'll tell you something, I wouldn't forget the seniors either. These seniors on this fixed income, I would help them. I'm telling you something, with that kind of money.
I know, but I was just asking you one thing, because a charitable heart, sometimes they zero in on problems and they see it better than somebody else on the other side. But I appreciate your call, and thank you for calling, and I look forward to you calling We the People again. Thanks a lot, caller. Okay, so we just heard from the public, and we heard a little bit about what people think about what I was saying was calling tribalism. And the reason why this tribalism thing is a hot topic, whether we realize it or not, we see it at different facets, and I see it in people despite their education. I done met some people that's here with doctor in front of their name, PhD behind their name. They have masters with apostrophe S degree as opposed to a master's degree without the apostrophe. They got the degree from master, and that's how they behaving right now. And what I mean by that with this tribalism, I had someone, and those of you who don't know, I have a carryout restaurant, and a couple of nights back, and I'm not open, so I go there and I hang out and I eat sometime in the evening. I had a guy, this is like the second incident of this nature that happened. I had a guy come to the door, and I'm familiar with him, and he banged on the door to get in. He saw me inside and said, "Let me in." And I said, "What's going on? We closed." He said, "Man, I want to eat." I said, "Well, I'm thinking he mistaken that, thinking I'm closing this after hours." And I said, no, because I have people do that, and they want whatever it is I got instead of me throwing food out. And then some of them, they not even begging. They just want me to sell whatever I got left because we're closing. But that's not the case. We're not open at all. So when I explained that to him, he started jumping up and down on the picnic table outside the restaurant. And so I went out to talk to him, and he started arguing with me, and he stormed off and said, "You're not from here. You're not from around here. This is my hood. And you in there eating with your lady friend, you ain't gonna never eat here again," and threatened me and stormed off. Went back off into the darkness across the street, off across the playground, one of the empty schools. And now, the last time this happened, the gentleman, he bust the windows out my car. And I'm ashamed of my behavior when I came outside, how I addressed it, but I just say this, I didn't call the police, but I addressed it. And with that being said, this is what I mean by tribalism. So obviously this person not screwed on too tight, but his verbal motivation, we don't know what's going on with him upstairs, but they were both aggressive guys, but their verbal motivation was, it's okay because I'm not from their tribe. I'm not in their circle. So it's okay to vandalize my property, disrespect me, and threaten the business owner out of your own community that look like you. So these people looked like me and was behaving like this. And no, this is not me complaining, because I'm more than capable of fending for myself. I'm not Mike Tyson to nobody, but I'm far from a simp. So I understand, I get it, but we have to stop the tribalism. After we get this call, we're going to talk about the tribalism in politics. Caller, thank you for calling We the People. Can I have your name, please? And you're on air.
Yes, you know what? I just called Denise. I just called to tell you right quick. You know what? This is my second call. Just called. The guy that you're talking about, I just encountered him on 25th and Broadway. I know exactly who you're talking about. He was jumping in front of the car. I was at the light stop. I told my husband, "Oh my God, what is he doing?" Pants was hanging down, low, his underwear, and just flipping. And he came back and did just like a cartwheel all the way across,
It sounds like the suspect.
Yes, I'm like, what? But you know what? Something is mentally wrong with him. You know what I'm saying? It really is, But anyway, okay, but I know who you're talking about.
Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit more about this tribalism in politics. So now what happens with that is this. So let's say, and we see it basically with our Republican and Democratic Party, and it's getting really bad because it's nothing wrong with having two opposing teams. The founding fathers of this country, they never thought that we would have political parties. They were just glad to get rid of a monarchy. That was their goal, to get rid of a monarchy. And they never thought that the political parties was mushrooming to what it is today. And to a sense, the political parties, they are good for us in the fact that it gives some balance, and the people hover around each other who have like or similar interests, and they create factions. That's natural with human beings. What's unnatural is this. We become so drunk off our passions of being with the particular tribe that when certain issues of importance that cross our desk that affect everybody, we drop the ball as a collective group. And that's horrible. This abortion debate thing is horrible. It's horrible how proponents of the pro-choice proponents have tricked people into disliking men in general by saying things that if you don't have a female genitalia, you don't have a right to have a comment. That's horrible. That's a horrible concept. We have a lot of intelligent people, doctors, psychologists, data people that are of either gender. They can contribute to solving our problems and our issues, and we should not discount those people just based on gender, even if the issue affects one gender more than the other. Okay? The second thing is, another reason why tribalism in politics is dangerous is this. You have people that may not be as conservative in their behavior as some, and they may result to violence. They may result to ill decision-making when they disagree with someone. A good example is, right now, everybody know I'm in some court litigation, and depending on my political affiliation, it may decide how my case turn out, who I know politically. And I don't mean like I know somebody, they were able to come to someone else and say, hey, this is a good guy, or they was able to come to someone else and say, you misunderstand him, she misunderstand you, and we come to a settlement. I don't mean a conduit or a go-between to settle a dispute. It depends on who you know as a conduit or go-between as whether or not you'll get your civil rights or justice in our region. And that's the reality of tribalism. We have our own factions within our Democratic Party, where we had different factions trying to take over the party, and they argue with one another, and we the people, we left the victims in the middle of it. Where if I can't have it, won't nobody have it. They'll just wreck the ship. With that being said, I'm gonna give an analogy, then I'm gonna take a break if we got enough time, right? And this is the analogy I wanna give. There was a boat, and the boat had 3 stories, and this is food for thought. And on the bottom of the boat, you had the basic laborers. They worked in the engineering room, and they was downstairs with this pump that filtered the seawater so everybody on the boat had clean water to drink. In the middle of the boat, you had some of the administrators and you had some of the mid-level people, middle income people. They weren't necessarily lower blue collar, but they weren't executives necessarily. But they were close to the executives because the executives and the shot callers and the political branch was on top of the boat. And they were navigating the boat and deciding which direction the boat go in amongst themselves. And they claimed to be influenced by the people on the second level of the boat and the first and the last level of the boat. But they would sometimes be disconnected. The people on top of the boat on the first floor would be disconnected from the people in the hall that was working in the engineering room, okay? And so they didn't have a lot in common, and they relied on the people in the middle to communicate those different interests because they knew them both. The people in the middle wanted to be on the top so bad they ignored the people in the bottom. And the people on the top didn't know the people on the bottom, so they inadvertently, whether they were good people or not, ignored the people on the bottom. And the people on the bottom didn't have as much education and know-how as the people upstairs, even though they were the labor. And they wasn't getting enough water downstairs, and that was their complaint, that the people upstairs had the faucets upstairs and wasn't sending enough water downstairs where we filter it and we move this boat along and we run this engineering room. In fact, we manage the toiletry system and the sewer system on the boat down here in the hull. And you guys not treating us fair by sending us water, and you always put us last when we make requests. So somebody in the bottom of the boat that had a strong personality but didn't have a lot of intellect, he began to get the ear of the people in the bottom of the boat, and he said, you know what, forget them and their water. Let's drill a hole in the bottom of the boat and get our own water. And they all sank because they drilled a hole in the bottom of the boat. And that's how we doing right now in our region sometimes. We leave the people we need the most in leadership that we need, our intellectuals, our capables, our seniors, our youth, our muscle. We all disconnected from each other. And we're going to be just like the people on the boat if we don't stop it with this tribalism. And we're going to sink ourselves. With that being said, we're going to take a break. Thank you for listening to We the People with John Allen. How you guys doing out there in Facebook land tonight?